Before we get into this video, just know that everything I'm saying is mostly a joke. Don't go hating on the people I mentioned in this video because they didn't really do anything wrong. I'm kind of just an ass. Also, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Right, let's get into this video. How's it going, my fellow streetwalkers? It's your boy Jacob. Welcome back to another Rage Bait Masterclass. For a while now, I've been seeing these videos about urban design and how poorly designed the whole United States is, and I want to talk about this and give my 2 cents on the topic because I'm going to be honest, I agree with a lot of the points these creators bring up. I just don't agree with them as people. I don't know why. They're well-made videos that discuss good points. I just don't like these people. I don't feel like they're real humans. So instead of listening to people who have done research on this topic and can regulate their emotions, listen to a 17-year-old who can't read and whose only knowledge on the subject is living in the hellhole these people talk about and has completely unfiltered hatred for where he lives. Like, oh my god, let me out of here. This place is so ass. When this guy talks about how much he hates American cities, you can tell he doesn't actually live there because he's not mad as hell. You can tell I live here because I will do anything to get out of here. I'd kill people if it meant I could leave this place. Whatever I say about why we cannot make half of this country walkable, believe me, because I live here. It's like, do you want to listen to the political views from people who have actually been to school for that subject? Or do you want to listen to the Romanian taxi driver who has never been to school in his life? And let me describe my town. So I live in a shithole town with a very visible discrepancy between the upper and lower classes. Like, I would see sports cars parked right next to shitboxes at the same Walmart parking lot. Nothing is walkable. The nearest grocery store is a 20-minute walk from my house, and half of it doesn't even have a sidewalk. And it's on a major road. People born here have one goal, and that is to escape this place. But if they don't, they just end up old and miserable, which describes like half the town. I'll talk more about this when needed, but first I'm going to talk about something that I've not seen any of these videos talk about because I don't actually watch them, that being the size and age of the country. Now, for most of this video, I'm going to do most of my comparisons with Europe because they're the only ones who bully the United States because they have nothing better to do. And I don't want to hear that Europe is not a country, okay? I fucking know. I'm talking about the EU. Y'all share a currency and you don't have a 50-step process to go to another country. So shut up. If we compare the size and population of the US to Europe, Europe is 9.3 million square miles with a population of 745 million people. The US, only counting the lower 48, is only 1.3 million square miles less, but also less than half the population of Europe. If we add Alaska and Hawaii, now we have more land than Europe with a smaller population. So what does this have to do with the fact that it takes me an hour to walk to Walmart? Well, we also need to mention the age of the country. The Americas were discovered by the Norse around 1000 AD, but no one gives a fuck because they didn't build Walmart. Now, Columbus discovered the Americas in 1492. The United States was only properly founded in 1776 with this much land. Then they started to kill a bunch of natives, and eventually we go from this to this. And then you have these homestead acts where they just started giving people land. Just fucking anyone gets land. So now you have a lot of people who have their own land, raise their kids on it, and now a lot of these people are valuing owning a house and their own land than living in a big city in a smaller home. And then you had the invention of faster transportation. You see, up until the 1800s, the fastest mode of transportation you had was a boat. But if the wind is shit, or more likely, there's no water, your next best bet is a horse, and its speed is dictated by how many horses you had. But if you didn't have horses, you had to walk, which is why for a lot of history, people like to live in cities because the only method of transport was walking. So if everything was walking distance, you'd have an easier life. Then the train came out. Now we could move faster, but on a fixed path. That's alright. Then the car came around. Too expensive, then not too expensive. So when people got cars, they realized they can go long distances and don't have to live near the city. And now we have this. If we think about it like this, the United States as we know it is a very young country, only 250 years old. The entirety of Europe, thousands of years. So all of their infrastructure was built around people walking to their destination. So when these updates to transportation came out, these cities changed to fit, the trains and the cars, but not too much because they're used to their designs. Meanwhile, the United States, yeah, We got the infrastructure, but we didn't really care about it that much. Also, keep in mind, the car was mainstream in the United States for like a fourth of its entire existence. So when it came around, we changed a bunch of our infrastructure for this car, because you also have to realize so many people just own homes in the middle of nowhere because of the Homestead Acts. So we gotta make sure that they can also interact with society. I don't really think they should, but that's a different topic for a different day. It also doesn't help that oil and car companies would lobby for city designs that favored the car over other forms of transportation. Fuck, add that to the reasons. A very young country that values owning their own house with the land to back up this value, and a country that is built in the image of those with the most money. All of these will lead to no sidewalk on a major road to a grocery store. And there's also the other issue with trying to convert many US cities into more walkable cities. Cities like those in the East and West Coast, yeah, it would take some time and trying to convince the locals, but in a couple years, it could be achieved. Now imagine trying to convince Texan motherfuckers that we should rely less on their oversized F-150s that are being used to commute to Dallas and more on a train system. You get shot, because again, many of these people like to live in the suburbs. They like this somewhat small town lifestyle. They enjoy the freedom of having a house, and having lived in both an apartment complex and a house, I can say both of them have their upsides and downsides. Like living in an apartment, you should feel slightly more connected to your neighbors. I never spoke to them, and shit should be closer, but where I was, not really. Also, you can't be loud. You'll get noise complaints from your neighbors. I did, because I was fucking loud as hell. Right now, I'm in my house. I can yell at 2 a.m. and nobody really cares. Also, having your space for all your shit is kind of cool. But yeah, I can kind of see the appeal of both of them. Okay, that was like really boring and kind of made sense, but also didn't. So let's get into some better reasons why the United States cannot be walkable. Number one, nobody talks about this in any of the videos. The people of the United States. Now, when you want to walk around your city or take some form of public transit, most likely you're going to encounter other people. But what if everybody sucks? Welcome to half of this godforsaken country. I actually walk and bike around town more than most people. Yeah, I'm usually just biking to the gym or the local track, but that's more than most people who just drive to their friend's house down the road. And I can tell you from experience, in safer areas that are not neighborhoods, you cannot be outside past 8 p.m. One time I was walking home from the gym and I saw this homeless lady yelling at people who were eating outside. Yeah, nobody was harmed, but like, why would you want to walk if you see that? Another time I was biking home from the field and I see this guy walking very frantically. So I tried to go from the sidewalk to the middle of the road, but the man saw me and asked if he could make a call. I don't know this man, nor do I trust him, so I lie and say no while listening to music on my cell phone, and I start biking as fast as I can. It wasn't a bad interaction, but like, it was enough to make me a little paranoid. And then a few minutes later, I saw another guy walking at night. Thankfully, he did nothing, but then I saw 2 guys walking in hoods. I thought, I'm dying tonight. It's over. They didn't really care when I got home, but still. Keep in mind, this is the better part of town. There are much worse areas in this. Fuck it, let's talk about them. Here's a top-down view of the town. So number 1, the random encounter zone. The name me and my friend gave this road past this intersection because this is where we saw some funky-ass people. We would just see a bunch of crazy-looking homeless people on the street. Most of the time, they were in the middle of the road trying to jaywalk, but they're really just walking without caring if they got hit or not. A lot of time, we'd also just see them on bikes, which is very odd because there's no sidewalk and they're not biking on the road. I don't even know how they get around. A rule of thumb for me is every time you see somebody walking in the random encounter zone, immediately assume they have a gun. Even if they don't, they do. I actually have a friend who has a job in the random encounter zone. He told me that their main customer base are just old people, crackheads, felons, sometimes all 3, also child predators. She said that one time this guy who had never been to the store before wrote the owners a death threat, and now he just yells at them when he passes the store. Also, there's a guy who literally egged the building. Yeah, these are the people I want to see when I walk on the street or take the bus. The second danger zone is the road before the random encounter zone. Literally the entire road. Me and a friend were joking that businesses are always hiring on this road because their employees keep getting shot. Of course, it's not really that bad, but you know, it has a reputation. The further up north you go on this road, the scarier it gets. There's a store that my dad told me that's where people get kidnapped. I believe him because they lock up bike pumps. Oh, and also got shot up a while ago. Go further north, you find Church's Chicken, a small restaurant bar type place where there's no alcohol, and a Family Dollar, all within a mile of each other. This is an active combat zone. The gameplay you're seeing right now is not Company of Heroes 2. It's a top-down view of that area right now. One time, me and my friends were hanging out in this restaurant area, and we heard these two ladies get into a very heated argument over food. They were very passionate about whatever they were yelling about. It was actually a little scary, but also kind of funny. Later, we were outside late that night, and we saw people approaching us. I thought we were dead, but thankfully it was just a mom and her 4 kids going to eat pizza. Now, you might wonder why I'm getting scared at just seeing people walk around. Well, you see, I live in the South, where it is literally easier to buy a gun than a car. And with all the crazy junkies in this town, you can put 2 and 2 together. I will also mention this because I felt like it. How many iconic threats to society from Europe can you mention? Okay, let me rephrase that question. How many European King Von level threats can you think of? What? Jack the Ripper? They had some freaky ass diseases back then. They probably just died from that. How many King Von level threats are in the US? I'm pretty sure each city has theirs and each state has a champion. So imagine if we had to walk in the same streets as these people. Even if our cities were designed to be walkable, people would still use cars, because when you're outside at the same time as these people, your life is in immediate danger. So whenever I hear somebody talk about how nobody wants to walk because of poor infrastructure, that's the main reason. But even if we fix that, there are too many smaller issues that prevent us from being able to walk anywhere. Crazy people with deadly weapons are one of them. It's kind of why in European countries, pickpocketing is more of an issue than in the United States, because pickpocketers there know there's not a 50-50 shot of them getting blown to pieces by a concealed carry sawed-off shotgun. And that's why in the United States, if you're getting robbed, it's more of an armed assault. It's also why when American tourists in Europe get pickpocketed, most of them just beat the shit out of the pickpocketer, because in their minds, they think, wait a minute, that guy just robbed me and he's running away. That must mean he's not armed. I'm going to kill him. And we do. And this is also why a conventional land invasion of the United States would be nearly impossible. Now, the South, obviously, everyone has a gun, so they can take care of themselves. But even with individual cities, I think Tulsa alone could solo 80% of armies in this world. And those that can't beat Tulsa would suffer too many losses for the Battle of Memphis. Number 2, the weather. Now, unless you live in a state like California that has the most divine weather of all time, 90% of people will fucking hate going outside. I live in the South and it sucks. January and February are like winter and it's freezing. March to May, a spring, you know, it's kind of nice. June to fucking October, possibly November, that's summer. And this year, it was actually pretty cool. It only got into the high 90s a couple times, but usually it's 100s across the board. In December, the beginning of winter, then the cycle begins again. And it's not even a consistent level of shit. Sometimes it would go from 75 to a fucking tornado warning and thunderstorm advisory. I remember one school day, the weather was high of 80, low of 40. What the fuck is this? What weather do I dress for? Is this hell? Who the fuck thought this land was habitable? Yeah, so our weather is kind of all over the place, but it leans more towards the hot side, which is great because none of our infrastructure is set up for the cold. So when there's the chance that ice may form on the roads, the schools shit themselves and shut down for the day. And usually the roads are perfectly safe to drive on. Yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the weather. Keep in mind my state isn't even that hot here. Think about Arizona, which is a literal desert, or Alabama, which I've heard has some of the worst humidity in the country. If you made these cities walkable, no one would want to walk in 100-degree weather. I wouldn't. Listen, okay, I hate the cold. Actually, just the wind, but I would rather walk in 40-degree windy weather than 100 degrees, and that's what the Europeans get. I found out that the most southern part of Spain is at the same latitude as New York. So basically, we're in hell, and I don't care how cold it is in Europe, they would melt the second they set foot in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, some might argue that we should have built our cities in the South like they do in hot climates like Africa. To that, I argue, how many pilgrims who arrived to the Americas have been to Africa or the Middle East? And while many natives built homes here out of mud or stone, we killed them all, and we didn't want to use their inferior technology. So that's why we live in wood houses protected by fiberglass insulation and air conditioning. It also doesn't help that so many of us are just fat as hell. which is probably because nobody walks anywhere and we eat so much fried bullshit. Now every time you see some British looking guy complain about 80 degrees in the summer, just call them a slur and tell them to be grateful they're not in the third world country of Altus, Oklahoma. Reason number 3, and this one's gonna require more thought than the other two, and that's the stigma of any other method of transportation apart from cars. Right now where I live, the only decent modes of transportation apart from cars are biking and taking the bus, but both those are looked down upon in our society. For one, the only people you see biking on the road are druggies, the homeless, or Mormons, and since only 5% of this town has sidewalks, they have to bike on the roads, which aren't even safe to drive on. So all these people either have nothing left to lose or just don't give a shit. Now how about taking the bus? Taking the local bus might actually be one of the worst things ever, and I actually have friends who took the bus and confirmed half of my beliefs about it. For one, the people who take the bus are either poor, there's nothing wrong with that though, as long as they act like decent people, drug addicts, the mentally deranged, or old ladies. And if we're being honest, the old ladies probably have it the hardest. They can't walk anywhere because they're too weak. They can't drive because they're too fucking slow in the head. And they can't even go on the bus because there's too many deviants on board. So really, living here is not for old people, but so many of them are still here. My friends can back me up in this one. One time my friend said she saw a homeless lady throw her drink across the bus and then just started to stare at her. And she said this guy also was staring at her. Like, it could have been him looking at something else, but come on, man, you could have made it at least a little less obvious. My brown friend also told me that the bus was always 10 to 15 minutes late, but that has less to do with the actual people and more to do with how poorly funded it was. Also, I take it back, it might have to do with the people driving, because my brown friend also told me that he would often see the bus driver get into fights with homeless people. Goated. And even if the bus was good, there's a stigma against people who use it. People would just assume you're poor or dependent on substances, which really sucks, because what if you just feel like taking the bus? So if you can get over that, then you have to deal with the actual people on the bus. And yeah, we already talked about that. Yeah, you're fucked. Now, what about trains? I don't know much about taking the metro. I've only taken it once in LA, and we have to drive to the station just for it to go take us to another destination. At that point, just drive there. I never got to experience a city with a fully fledged out metro system, but I have watched videos of the New York metro. What the fuck is this, dude? The Malden line from Fallout Frost looks safer. So, those are all my points. Just to recap, the US isn't walkable because it's a very young and large country that was shaped by the car and those with the most money. People here fucking suck, the weather sucks, and the transportation here also sucks. So everything I've said may make it sound like I don't want walkable cities. I do, but you also have to realize not everybody wants a more walkable city. They want to own their own home and like drive everywhere, and that's perfectly fine. Like me, you know, I would like to live in a more walkable area where people can go outside without getting shot, but I do want to own a house, and the only walkable cities in this country are like expensive as shit. So really, you just have to pick the one that's the least shit for you. Now, what about changing your city? I don't know how much power we have collectively. Even if we all unite, there's probably somebody with more power and more money above all of us. So, you know, I don't fucking care. Do whatever you want. Whatever you want to believe in that. Everything is true. God is dead. I am a gay man. Subscribe and shut up.